Considered one of the best Star Trek episodes of all time by fandom as a whole, The Inner Light would take the audience on a journey through another life for Captain Jean-Luc Picard. But what was the story behind this monumental episode? Well, today we'll find out. Hello and welcome to Backtrek, a web series that focuses on the background information of any given topic in Star Trek. In this video, we're taking a look at the Star Trek The Next Generation episode The Inner Light, to better understand its place in Star Trek history. The journey to the Inner Light would start back in Season 4 of Star Trek The Next Generation. Michael Piller really wanted to do a special Picard-centric episode, one that would show the depth that the character truly had. And so he came up with the idea of having Picard somehow live an entirely, totally different life. Passing this idea on to the writing staff, everyone was supportive of the idea and immediately got to work on it. But sadly, after dozens of floated ideas, none were good enough for Piller, and he axed the entire project. Flash forward to Season 5's production of the show, and a story pitch by Morgan Gendel, and the idea of living another life would be resurrected. Gendel's pitch, however, was not the story we would eventually get. His idea was that an alien race would have fought a horribly destructive war, one which they would wish no one ever to repeat, and thus would send out a probe to zap this war narratives into the minds of anyone passing by. In this story, it would be both Picard and Riker to be zapped by the probe, ending up as troopers in this war, where they would have to live out the scenario to make their way back to the Enterprise. The writing staff were intrigued by the alternate reality premise. Joe Minosky and Brandon Braga, however, saw it as an opportunity to get Piller's Picard alternate life idea onto the small screen. Along with Ronald D. Moore, they then provided feedback and suggestions to Gendel, inviting him to repitch the story several times. As a result, the story morphed into a community that had been destroyed in a war, who wanted to pass their cultural story through the probe, with Picard as the central character experiencing a new life on the planet. Piller loved the idea and invited Gendel to prepare a story outline. The outline he prepared, though, still had major differences from the finished episode, as the plot involved a society being inducted into the Federation, one which there was a huge mystery about, that being, how did they advance technologically so quickly? By the end of the episode, the TNG crew, while Picard is experiencing his other life, would discover that they had done this technical leap on the backs of a slave race they then eventually wiped out. Piller would axe this focus on the mystery taking place in the real timeline in favor of an almost complete focus on the experiences Picard was having, being very specific that Picard should be married, have children, and then grow old. And so, with a few rewrites which would garner Peter Allen Fields a co-writer's credit, and a few uncredited further rewrites, The Inner Light would be born. Gendel himself would go on to write the TNG episode Starship Mine, as well as the DS9 episode Armageddon Game, and co-write the teleplay for Deep Space Nine's episode The Passenger. A little bit of Trek trivia for you all here is the soup that Picard, well, Kamen, eats and loves was actually named Kenome, but this line would be cut from the episode during final production. Jay Chataway would compose the excellent score for this episode, including the Ressican flute solo played by Kamen. Chataway would use the Scottish tune Skyboat Song, also known as Speed Bonnie Boat, as his inspiration for the flute ditty. And part of the Ressican melody played by Kamen's son Batai would come to be used as part of the theme tune for Star Trek Picard. Daniel Stewart, real-life son of Patrick Stewart, would play Kamen's son Batai in this episode. Daniel wouldn't have a very large acting career, with only 12 acting credits to his name over his lifetime thus far. Margot Rose, on the other hand, who played Cayman's wife, would have a long and fruitful acting career with 64 credits to her name and is still acting today. She would also come back to Star Trek to play K'Par Rin in the Star Trek Deep Space Nine 4th season episode, Hard Times. Richard Ryle would play Cayman's best friend, Older Bataille, in this episode. He by far has the most extensive acting career I've run across yet, with a whopping 410 acting credits to his name. And he's still going. I only hope that I can have that sort of energy and the talent this man has in the later part of my life. Peter Lorreson would direct this outing into the Star Trek universe. He would go on to direct the TNG episode Gambit Part 1, as well as Star Trek Voyager's episode Lineage. He would also be one of the producers on 78 various Star Trek episodes. A little bit more Trek trivia for you all here is in regards to the filming sets. Most of the exterior scenes of the Resset community were actually filmed indoors, on Paramount's Studio Stage 16. The only on-location shooting was for Cayman's hiking trip. This scene was filmed at Bronson Canyon in Griffith Park, which would include a matte painting created by visual effects producer Dan Curry. And yet another piece of Trek trivia for you all here is in regards to the old age makeup received by the cast of this episode. Not only did Cayman and his family receive old age makeup, but so too did many of the villagers seen in the background. This was done to ensure a consistent, believable look to the audience over the time of the episode. The Inner Light would air on June 1st, 1992, and be the 25th episode of the 5th season. Patrick Stewart adored this episode immensely, even going so far as to declare it one of his greatest acting challenges he had ever faced in his Star Trek history. And watching the episode again and again for this research video, I have to say his performance is truly amazing. Every time I watch it, I'm captivated by the good captain and what's happening to him directly because of Stewart's outstanding performance. Overall, the episode would be well received by fandom and production staff as a whole. Peter Lorreson, Michael Westmore, and even Michael Piller would name The Inner Light as one of their favorite Star Trek episodes of all time. The Inner Light would even go on to win the 1993 Hugo Award for Best Dramatic Presentation. It's the third of 4 Star Trek episodes to win the award, and was the first television episode to win since the original Star Trek series. The other episodes being The Menagerie Parts 1 and 2, The City on the Edge of Forever, and then All Good Things. The episode would also be nominated for an Emmy Award for Outstanding Individual Achievement in Makeup for a Series. When the decision was being made as to whether to remaster TNG or not, The Inner Light would also be selected to be part of a sampler disc to preview the remaster quality. There is something so magical about this episode that can't really be put into words. In fact, if you were to describe the episode to a non-fan on the street, that non-fan would probably think the episode sounded boring and unremarkable. Yet somehow, when watching it, it is anything but, proving that both Star Trek and good science fiction in general doesn't require big space battles or amazing effects to be wonderful. Merely a good story with a lot of heart, and a cast that can carry that story.
A mystery of unknown origin
Record at sickbay. The captain's hurt.
traps Picard in another world
My prisoner here.
and another man's soul,
This is not my life.
destined to spend eternity on a doomed planet
You simply cannot let this civilization die.
until fate
Cayman,
strikes a fatal blow.
The captain is under attack.
I'm losing him.
On Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Thank you for watching today's episode of Backtrack. What did you think of The Inner Light? Is it one of your favorites? Or perhaps you disliked the episode, going against the majority of fandom's feelings on it? Well, leave your comments in the section below, And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel, hitting that little bell icon so you won't miss a single video we release. Want to help the channel live another life? Then consider becoming a channel patron. The link to our Patreon account is in the description below. Thanks again for watching. Live long and prosper.